we want kids to be problem solvers. If a student can graduate high school and have the ability to methodically approach a problem and use the resources available to them to solve it, they can do it literally anything. So our goal is always, when our kids, obviously the employability skills are a huge piece of that. That's kind of part of that equation for sure. But the problem solving piece and putting them in situations where they're going to fail, they're going to screw up, they're going to have to deal with it and, get over it so that they can actually solve the problem is life.
Paul, Mike, what's up?
Hello, Nick.
Welcome to Making Chips again.
Good morning.
Hey guys, how's it going today?
It's part 2. And Paul, you're looking very swagged out, man. Like advertising for ProShop, yeah?
I am. Well, what I'm actually doing is I am advertising for Eagle Manufacturing at the same time, because all this swag is made by Eagle, who we're going to learn about in a little while. It's a student-run business run out of a high school. We donate ProShop. They use it to run all their jobs. They do machining, fabrication, screen printing, graphic printing, laser cutting, and it's
well, that is really awesome. Cool. I'm drinking my coffee out of my, shameless plug Henny cup too.
I've got my shop floor coffee.
What is that? Tell me about shop.
Nice.
It sounds gross.
Right.
You drink coffee from
the
shop floor?
I collect all the empties from the day before.
Squeeze it out of a bag.
All the ones that were left by the machine.
It's a great company focused on selling coffee to help fund workforce training. Look them up. I mean, I know you've talked with Mike, and
I'm excited. I think we got some plans to do some things with Mike Franz here in collaboration with MakingChips.
Maybe a little something.
Not old coffee from.
Maybe a little something at IMTS too.
Yeah, a little foreshadowing going on here, Mike. Huh? All right, cool. We have another guest here today, and I'm super pumped to bring him into the show because we got Gabe back, but this next guy kind of expanded on what we talked about in the first episode and brought, hey, how do we go from operating machines to operating a business? And so this guest started in the industry right out of Ball State University. He was in sales and technical support for CNC, 3D printers, and robots. And then after several years in the industry, he transitioned into teaching. He's been at Brown County High School in Nashville, Indiana for the past 9 years. I didn't even know there was a Nashville, Indiana, so that's cool. Then he started the Eagle Manufacturing student-run business at Brown County High School in 2018. And in doing that, he brought ProShop to Eagle in 2019, which is, I can't wait to get into that. And then recently, he oversaw a $2.2 million expansion of Eagle into a newly renovated facility. Welcome to the show, Chris Townsend. What's up, man?
Not much. It's awesome to be here. I appreciate you guys having me.
Yeah, and welcome back, Gabe. It's good. It's good for part 2 here. Yeah, so I'm excited to get into the meat of the episode, and I'm excited to kind of brainstorm where this could go, where it's already gone, where it could go in the future, because there's more to running a successful manufacturing business than just being great at making parts. But before that, we got this segment that we do because I have a chip on my shoulder.
Are you tired of putting out fires? Is the coolant starting to go bad? Are your cutting tools edgy, or is that just how you're feeling? Chances are we've been there too. So we have to ask, what's the chip on your shoulder?
All right, we've all had this happen, and I'm just gonna lay it out in front of you, and you tell me what you think. So a stranger who you don't know, who probably works for some sort of marketing software-oriented product, sends you a connection request on LinkedIn. You get that little red notification. What's your first thought?
Uh-oh.
I'm going to get pitched.
You just know it's going to happen.
100%
and
you're like,
maybe they listen to Making Chips or something. Maybe not, right? Then you hit accept, and it's 5 paragraphs, this really structured, phony sounding pitch, and then you're just oh no, and then there's no good setting to make it
Insta block.
Yeah, exactly. And then they'll be like, hey, I'm just following up on my last message. There's nothing to follow up.
I've kind of gotten to where if I don't have a mutual connection, I just ignore the invite almost.
But there's always some mutual connection.
99% of the time. But if there's not any, I don't even accept it.
If they're not actually employed in the metalworking industry, I just don't accept the invite.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, that's good. How about the one where they take the mutual connection and you like name drop it, like, hey, it seems like we're both best friends with Paul Van Mater, and he told me to reach out to
I like the ones that'll say we have several mutual connections. Look, and it'll say one. It'll be one. It's like,
yeah, but that guy knows some other people.
Copy and paste it.
Yeah, no, it's terrible. So anyway, if you're out there doing that, I mean, part of me is a sales guy, lead a sales team, and it's like I appreciate the hustle, but not really with that tactic.
The flip side of that, I've had people drop like that, and there is just that. There's one little nugget they said in that first couple sentences that you realize they did actually look at what you do. Those very often have turned into follow up phone calls, and have met some really great people. So I try to not block just everybody, but
once in a while they get through, and that's why they do it, Mike. It's really your fault.
Probably so.
I mean, if we're being honest, like you are the reason this happens, because once in a while you'll call the guy. But all right, let's bring the guests into this. So Chris, we're gonna start the same way we started with Gabe, and if you could just take us back to like the beginning of your origin story as a manufacturing leader. I mean, you don't have to start at like your birth.
I was going to say I was born at 6:33. Oh no. No, I think where it really started is my grandfather was an electrical engineer his whole life. And that's really what initially got me interested in anything engineering and, just engineering, manufacturing related is where it started. And then as I was going through high school, I had a couple of really fantastic teachers in a couple of different areas, a construction teacher, a graphics teacher, and manufacturing. Specifically at our high school, we had all three of those as options. And they actually encouraged me to go into teaching itself. So I went to school for teaching based upon their recommendation and how great they were. And then when I graduated with my degree, I ended up going, like you mentioned, into industry in sales and technical support. And then I always knew I was going to come back to education, but I really enjoyed my time in industry, wanted to get a little more experience so I could maybe bring a little bit more to the classroom when I got there. Yeah, I ended up here in Nashville, Indiana, not Tennessee. I've had stuff shipped to Tennessee before because they assumed it was Tennessee, and that's always fun. But yeah, so I ended up here and as an engineering instructor originally, and then we added on the manufacturing and the graphic design, graphics production piece, and then which led into Eagle Manufacturing, our student-run business.
Awesome. Yeah, awesome. So okay, your grandfather was an electrical engineer, and then your first like non-teaching job was sales and application support. So give me a couple examples of like projects you were working on or companies you were working for, and like what your day-to-day was like there.
Well, mostly what I worked with was schools. So I did sales of those things you mentioned, CNC, 3D printing, laser, robotics, things of that nature, directly to schools. So I worked in Indiana, Illinois, and Ohio with everything from middle schools up to university level programs, and just helped advise them and try to bring in the equipment they needed for specific applications. And in education, it's a little more broad than it is in industry in most cases, where they're trying to fill a whole lot of needs with a piece of equipment versus filling a specific need. So we were kind of more like trying to fill a whole lot of needs of like 6 different professors in a department, for example, for a 3D printer, and being able to meet all their needs, or, going into a high school and being able to do the manufacturing program and engineering at the same time, and trying to do some crossover there to get their best bang for their buck. So that was kind of my main thing from the sales side, and then I did installs and tech support for mostly lasers, 3D printing, and some CNC as well.
Chris, I'd love to hear how you took you started there and were able to maybe even convince the education system, but turn that into a business, turn it into an actual company that's making parts and sending, making swag for ProShop. And
we ran our engineering program for the first couple of years I was here, first year or two. And what I found was, we had equipment that sat for multiple months on end because we'd only use it for a unit for a couple of weeks. And, it seemed like a waste to have equipment sitting in the corner. And then we worked with an organization called Regional Opportunities Initiative here in Bloomington, Indiana. And their goal is to boost up our region. We're an 11 county region, Indiana uplands down here, and Brown County is one of those. And their goal is to boost up the economy in the entire 11 county district. And one of the ways they did that was their Ready Schools initiative, which is going into school districts that applied and giving them money to be able to identify the needs of the community and the surrounding area, and then tailor programming in the district to be able to meet those needs of industry and other businesses in the area. And as a part of that, we were already kind of thinking down this road, but that was what kind of accelerated our bringing Eagle Manufacturing and the student-run business into Brown County High School.
Yeah. And last year when you had your grand opening and I got to come visit and talk, and it was so inspiring to see all these student-run businesses from all the surrounding areas, machining, fabrication, food service, raising animals. I mean, it was just really inspiring. I think a real model for the way the whole nation should be approaching this.
Yeah, I love that, Paul. Like the entrepreneurial spirit being taught in school, and then it's almost like an incubator. And
Absolutely.
Then that's my question now for you, Chris. Like, how many of these are just kind of like a business while they're a student, and then they graduate, move on, and they get hired in other places? And then how many of these student-run businesses actually continue on and become like real businesses that go on beyond their education?
To be completely transparent, we've been a little overwhelmed growing Eagle Manufacturing the past few years. So one of our goals from the beginning was to track where our students went over time. See who's going straight to work, post-secondary, internship, apprenticeship, those types of things. And frankly, we've been kind of not great at keeping track of them, other than anecdotally and keeping up with students. So I kind of have anecdotal, I guess, evidence and not actual data behind that, which is something we're going to be working towards doing better in the future. But at this point, the vast majority of our students, we are just getting the first group of Eagle Manufacturing students that are finishing college, that were the first year or so of Eagle Manufacturing. So we've had several students who have gone straight to work in local businesses, whether that's, not necessarily manufacturing. We don't have a whole lot of manufacturing right in Nashville. We are surrounded by Cummins World headquarters is 20 minutes away. And we have quite a few manufacturing businesses, but a lot of our students have gone straight to work, have gone into construction, working for local businesses. We're a big tourist area, so going into some of the admin side of that in some cases. But a lot of them have gone on to 2 and 4 year degrees, and we're just, like I said, we're just now getting students graduating. We recently, or last year, had one of our students who was at OCD Machine in Indianapolis, which is actually a ProShop customer as well. And that relationship started because, we linked up through Paul with OCD because they were also using ProShop. And so that's a student who graduated from Eagle, went to a post-secondary machining program, and did an internship with OCD and is now a full-time employee with them.
OCD Machine. It sounds like they're like fanatical about checking parts, right?
It is the best name ever for a manufacturing business. I love that name so much. It's so appropriate.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, okay. So one theme that I wanted to kind of unpack with you guys on this episode is gamification. It's this kind of buzzword, but it's really a theme and a kind of philosophy that resonates with the younger generation. Resonates a lot with me too. But I think Titan's done a great job of this. Gabe, like when I define it, you can give a couple examples of like how Titan's built this into his program. And then Chris, like what you've done with these student-run businesses has elements of it too. But shout out to our buddy Steven Corshane, who's like all about gamification and how do we make life feel like a series of leveling up, And so here's the official definition. I'm going back to the Jim Carr days where we would define everything in every episode. But, gamification is the strategic attempt to enhance systems, services, organizations, and activities by creating similar experiences to those experienced when playing a game. And in order to motivate and engage users, game elements are incorporated. This is generally accomplished through the application of game design elements and game principles, dynamics, and mechanics in like non-game concepts. So, all right, Gabe, think about elements of like a video game or points or leveling up or getting a badge, and then maybe give us a couple examples of like how you train machining where it's gamified.
Yeah, so like with the students, they're through CNC Expert, the students are drawing, designing, programming, setting up their parts, cutting them out, and then inspecting them, right? So like with Titan 1M, there's 3 components for every one part. And so I could see something like that, playing into that, where each 3 certifications, now you have Titan 1 mastered, and then Titan 2M, same thing, and kind of leveling up each time. Yeah.
Yeah, you get like a badge on your profile or whatever, right?
Right.
I don't actually know how it works. I should, but like as you've mastered new things, it's like playing a game and like you get new gear for your character or something.
Right. And every one of those certificates are visible on the student's CNC Expert profile. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, that is cool. And so now this is more for like Chris and Paul, but with this student-run business and trying to make it feel like a series of leveling up, and maybe you can touch on how you've brought like some of that ERP, MRP. What do you call ProShop? You have your own acronym for it, Paul, but like the ecosystem,
many.
Right?
Yeah, the digital manufacturing ecosystem, DME, which isn't catching on, by the way. So.
I'm trying to help here.
I appreciate it.
But yeah, so like kind of explain some of the elements of how you use ProShop, Chris, and like maybe what makes it feel like a game for these kids to level up their student-run businesses.
Yeah, I mean, the cool thing about ProShop and how we implement it in Eagle Manufacturing is that we have various levels, right? So we have students who are making parts on the CNC machine and operating. We have students who are programming. We have students who are doing estimating and quoting. We have the shipping and receiving piece of that as well. And then, the loop back for marketing and sales. And all of that is driven off of ProShop. So it's all at various different levels that each student can participate in based upon what their interests are and those types of things. So I guess it's the feedback that they get from that is really ties into that gamification piece a little bit, because they see an order go out the door, right? And they see customers, for t-shirts, for example, might be wearing it around in town. So that's kind of the piece of Eagle Manufacturing I think especially a lot of our production students enjoy, is seeing the things that they've made out in the real world and people interacting with them, wearing them, those types of things. So it's I know it's not a direct correlation necessarily to the gamification piece, but I think there's a lot of incentive there that is kind of part of that, the impetus behind the gamification that
absolutely.
Get out of using ProShop.
And Chris, I don't remember. I should. Are you guys using the company positions and training module there at Eagle?
We use company positions. We're working on getting training modules together. We have procedures. That's what we've spent the last 2 years while we were moving into our new spaces, building out SOPs for all of our positions, because we found out real quick that is a huge bottleneck in the process when we have 19, 20 different positions and 1 or 2 advisors at any given time. Procedures are super critical. So we're building them out, and then those will be going into the training modules in ProShop.
Because what I was going to say, the way we tie all that together is when you go to the company positions module, you can see the org chart. It starts with the president or with CEO at the top and kind of trickles down like a tree. But you can apply training requirements to every single position. And when you look at a user's profile, it will say, setup machinist, machine operator, inspector, shipping, receiving clerk, whatever, with a percentage right next to their name. They're 30% trained, 80% trained, 100% trained. So you can see the percentages for every position. And you can even display that on the org chart. So you can see all people's names with red and green. Are they trained enough? Are they not trained enough? So that's certainly an element of like scoring up to get it to 100%. And then going to the next level, the leader of that department, or getting a promotion to the next thing. So
that's exactly like a game. I mean, it's like playing The Sims, but in a shop.
Exactly.
So, I mean, like think of The Sims. You're just like living somebody's life. You're leveling up their cooking skill. You're leveling up their career. You're trying to woo-hoo as much as possible with the other person who lives in your house. If you guys have ever played that game, you know what that means. And that's how you get the kids in the game. But let's take that to manufacturing leadership, right? And there's training on the machine. There's developing a curriculum that teaches people like how to make parts, how to check parts, how to, produce, how to manufacture things. But then What are some ways where we could take it to maybe another level? Chris, you've done that with like real businesses.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Like you have student run businesses with real customers, but maybe not everybody's set up to create that. Is there ways that we could almost like brainstorm like how to build a simulation? You know, Paul, Gabe, you guys might have some ideas here too, because Paul, you build out ProShop ERP. It's supposed to deal with real money, but what about in an educational context? Do you think you could almost do like, I don't know, like a simulation of a business to teach people what it's like?
Yeah, I mean, I'd certainly defer to Chris and Gabe on this, but you could absolutely have, fake customers and fake vendors within a classroom where
Mm-hmm.
you are, you know, creating virtual products and shipping them and invoicing for them and, you know, doing the whole thing. It's just not real money changing hands.
You can absolutely do that. I mean, a lot of schools that don't have the resources necessarily, which is a big problem in our specific portion of education on the manufacturing side of things, depending on your location and state and all that type of stuff matters. But a lot of times you don't have the resources to do those types of things. So you can absolutely set up a mock manufacturing business, assign roles to each student. You could even get theoretical real jobs from local industry, linking up with local industry and saying, hey, what are some parts and things that you guys would normally send out and get quoted and get made? And then you could absolutely build a virtual couple week, curriculum on, running the students through that process and what all that looks like. I will say that which there's a lot of steps to get there, obviously. So it's not something you can just do tomorrow, but the biggest benefit I think we get from Eagle Manufacturing is having those real customers and real business and scrapping real money and scrapping parts and costing money. Right. And there is no better environment in which to learn that and retain that and actually see the negative and positive impacts of your actions in that type of environment and making sure that you set up a culture and expectations for students, because honestly, students are underestimated, especially high school students are underestimated across the board. I mean, especially outside of education. I mean, I pretty much everybody I talk to, would have that opinion for the most part, unless they're around the kids every day. And we have kids who are running our entire sale. I haven't touched a quote in 2 months. Like I might have, advised them on one of those. Right. So we're, doing 10, 15 grand a month sometimes in sales, which isn't a lot of money, but when you're talking about a student run business in the context of which we operate, I mean, it's a significant amount for a couple students to be in charge of and doing all those types of things. So they will absolutely rise to whatever your expectations and culture that you set. And I think that's a big thing and a good way from an education perspective to get these students going.
That sounds really cool. And I know Paul and Chris, we've talked before. I think it would be neat to, like I said, I'm dealing with the Titans curriculum. Like each part has a value, and relating that to just like a real business and the fact of, hey, for Titan 1M, when you get this done in a reasonable amount of time for the learning process, they will earn so much money. And it can be tagged back to that individual student. Hey, this part here took a little bit longer for you. You actually lost money on it. But I can really see that and getting that in their mind so that when they're in a real shop, they know time is money, and I'm really excited about that.
It's a great missing piece. I mean, Paul, I've told you before, Nick, I know we've talked about it, coming in from private equity, understanding a lot about business, but coming into manufacturing, I mean, the greatest thing we did, just another plug for ProShop, was move to ProShop because it taught me how to run a manufacturing business correctly. I knew if I followed their best practices, I was going to be good. And, but I had a management team and a shop full of people that have been doing this their entire careers. And just what they've learned through that same process of being able to look at how something's supposed to run, well, all the way from the quote process to invoicing, right? And being able to see how we got to where we were, where we're at now, where we're going with this, how we did on the job. Maybe we need to change it next time, anything like that. And everybody has such a better understanding. So this missing piece here is, I mean, when Chris, when you were mentioning, tracking these graduating students, in my head, I'm thinking, man, if you can send me, I would take everybody that can work in a manufacturing facility and is already trained on ProShop, right? Like, if you can send them to Oklahoma, I'll take them.
There might be a couple of them take you up on that, honestly.
Send them.
That's what we're looking forward to. We've got a lot more resources brought in house with our expansion. We have a couple other advisors who are full time in the program, and we're really looking forward to building out those pathways for our students and connecting with industry, which I think is another big thing, which was mentioned last episode. But industry reaching out to schools, and schools should be reaching out to industry as well. But if you need people, go talk to the source. Go give them some feedback. Go give them some information they can use to help build programs, and maybe bring students into your businesses and help you out in the future.
Speaking about rounding out a student's education, I know, Chris, you talked so much about employability skills as one of the things that you really teach, and you have a list of them, and I think if I'm not mistaken, that was inspired partly from Cardinal Manufacturing and the excellent program that they have, up there. But
absolutely,
but Gabe, coming back to what you were saying, at the end of every Titan project, whether you're using spreadsheets or Excel or whatever, or ProShop, you could certainly assign a dollar value to that. Have the student technically ship an invoice for it, put that on even a leaderboard, speaking of gamification, and see which student has shipped the most dollars in a quarter, in a semester or whatever.
Right.
And that virtual money could earn them who knows what, pizza night or something fun.
Well, we could even tie that into our school store, gift card or something like that down to there. They have a cafe, so that would, food motivates.
Yes, it does.
Yeah,
maybe
that'd be great.
The other piece I'll add from our side is that on that note of paying, or the gift card thing, so we do have a summer internship where our kids do get an hourly wage for the hours they work during the summer, and then during the school year, which we haven't been able to because of our moving into our new space and spending a lot of money to do so, but our goal is to have a profit share with our students. So at the end of every year, we set aside a chunk of the profits that we made during the year and then distribute that out to students based upon hours worked. So that's another gamification piece too, which is, the more efficient we are, the more profitable we are, the more you guys potentially get paid out at the end of the year as well. So that's a nice piece as a motivation.
Gabe, I was going to comment, if there was a program like yours here locally and something like that, I think as an potential future employer, I'd be willing to donate into those dollars turn into maybe scholarship dollars that for them to go to that next level of education. So as they earn money, as they earn the monopoly money, as Nick put it, in your shop, that they're earning some portion of that in scholarship dollars to their next level of education. That would be a lot of fun.
Yeah, that'd be great. No, and what you said about the employability skills, that is something that we really hit, and it's nice to incorporate that into the projects. I have something that, from talking with all my employers over the past years, I actually have a poster up on the wall that says, employability skills: show up every day, work the full time you're there, willingness to learn, have a good attitude, and pass a drug screen. And we don't actually, drug test, but going into this industry, it is an important thing to think about and to show these students, hey, you do need to think about these things and being efficient with your time. So that's really neat.
Yeah, I'm ear to ear smiling right now because this is exactly what I was hoping for this episode. It's just kind of putting out ideas hey, we could build something. I think to speak to what Chris has done, there's nothing better than real, and instead
Absolutely.
of simulation, real dollars, real customers. But if I put myself in Gabe's shoes, okay, Gabe, start student run business program by next semester. It's whoa, hang on,
right.
I got a lot of stuff going on here, and then when we bring Paul into the episode, and it's well, hey, what we could put fake dollars in there and fake customers. And I'm not trying to give Paul a big homework assignment here, but wouldn't it be pretty cool if everything we just talked about was kind of built into a special form of this manufacturing ecosystem, and that form is for education. It takes everything that the Drew Crows and the Titans and everyone who's training on machines and obviously you, Gabe, you, Chris, and it just takes it to like one level further. We're now, you guys were talking about like the students earn dollars and it can be converted to scholarships. Like that's awesome. As someone who sells OEM products, like, maybe it's, hey, I'd like to be a sponsor of this program, and at the end of it, like maybe those dollars convert into like little bonuses for these guys, and I'd be happy to pay that because, hey, I was part of the curriculum. My products were part of the curriculum. Look at what like Kennametal does, and shoot, even what I do with Titan. So it kind of all connects, and I think there is a way to like take this simulation and build it into like a real thing. Even having like teams you guys were talking about, I think it was, you called it like positions. So, you start to form teams in these schools, and I'm not sure how big your classes are, but, maybe you have someone like me who's more bent on like the customer side of manufacturing and more of a sales and marketing applications type guy. And then you've got, somebody else who maybe really is all about the numbers, and they're thinking about the cash flow. And like, maybe they built the Titan 1M out of aluminum, but they know they can earn more money if it was made out of titanium. So they got to build up enough cash flow to be able to buy the titanium stock. And, you really could create like such an awesome simulation. And then I think people would get behind it.
Yeah, that'd be awesome to take it to that next level. And okay, now you've been successful with this. Now to cash up, to level up, to get your next level, start cutting it out of harder stuff. That's awesome. Awesome idea.
And then we could throw monkey wrenches like into the simulation that life throws us, right? Like, oh, your supply chain's gone. You're screwed. Now you got to pay, 50% more, and you got to go find the supplier. Or I always watch, like, my kids like to watch Kids Baking Championship. All these kids are like baking and for this competition, and like they'll be halfway through their thing, and the two hosts will throw in like, oh, by the way, you have to do this now. And you have like 45 minutes to do it. You see these kids like scrambling, trying to figure it out. But that's real life, right? That happens in real life. So.
And that just came to me like when you were saying that of, hey, I've already provided the tooling for the aluminum parts, but now next level, you're going to cut it out of a different material. We need to research what tooling you need. And now that, now instead of a $50 cutter, that's a $120 cutter. And how does that play into your overhead and everything? That'd be great.
Yeah. And the other thing too, on that front is like, really when it comes down to what we're trying to do at Eagle Manufacturing, I know Gabe's doing the exact same thing, is that we want kids to be problem solvers. If a student can graduate high school and have the ability to methodically approach a problem and use the resources available to them to solve it, they can do it literally anything. So our goal is always, when our kids, obviously the employability skills are a huge piece of that. That's kind of part of that equation for sure. But the problem solving piece and putting them in situations where they're going to fail, they're going to screw up, they're going to have to deal with it and, get over it so that they can actually solve the problem. And get over the failure piece of it is life, right? So that is our number one goal, is that when our kids leave here, they are very, very good problem solvers. And if they are, then whenever they graduate, whether that's manufacturing or anything else they do, they are going to be successful.
Yeah, you hit that right on the head, Chris, as problem solvers. Good job.
Yeah, I'll tie this back to, for those that know, my origin story. I went to college, but I got deeply involved in the Formula SAE competition. And, so every year we would design and build a car. We would go then compete with that car against other universities, and talk about a place where you need to solve problems, right? You're doing testing, you go to do a layup on your body, that doesn't gel right, and all of a sudden you got to scrap it and start over. Or, you scrap a part on the CNC machine and you got to figure out a new way to fixture it so it works better. And so there's just so much intensity of, project management and learning and teamwork and problem solving, which I think, served me really well going into business. But at the same time, that's why we're so passionate about giving back to education, because we know how influential that was for us in becoming, business owners, business leaders for our careers. So I just love watching these students, run a business, figure out real world problems, make parts, figure out how to get rid of chatter, whatever it might be, from the big ones to the small ones. And it's more than just, just the cutting the chips. It's, Chris, like you were talking about, people that gravitate into estimating and quoting and shipping and receiving and procurement, and those are all super real world skills that can just go right out into industry.
Yeah, and it allows us to bring a wide variety of student into Eagle Manufacturing as well, because we absolutely want to boost the manufacturing industry, and that's why we started. But we also, obviously, in the manufacturing industry, like you're mentioning, it's not just making parts; it's the entire process of manufacturing. It's the logistics, it's the estimating, quoting, procurement, everything across the board. So we're really excited to be able to attract a different type of student into and maybe expose them to the manufacturing industry when they never would have been exposed to it before and never realized that the jobs that they're interested in actually do exist in manufacturing or in fact vital parts of the industry.
Yeah. I mean, like as a dad who's got 4 young kids, the oldest is 9. If there was like if everything we talked about was a real thing and I could like get them playing this game, we're in like our 3rd generation of this family business. Like I want it to be easy for number 4. Like, oh yeah, I played that game growing up, and then they just get plugged into the business. It goes from Monopoly money to real money. And, someday I'm on a raft somewhere while my daughter is kicking butt, But
all right, manufacturing simulator video game. We got to do it.
Yeah, I'm not trying to sign Paul up for like building this into, but I am trying to sign Paul up for this.
He is the only one here with software development experience, I think. Yeah. So I could be speaking out of turn there, but
I mean, Mike had something like that back in the day.
It's been a long time though.
I mean, I just asked Mike if he knew how to do a speed test, and I was like, oh yeah, the software company's probably good. No, but back to you, Mike. Like you were talking about, man, if I could get plugged into a program like this, like how much more would I want to hire the guy? I mean, think about it. Like you're hiring machinists all the time,
right?
And people to like lead your manufacturing company. You could take some piece of paper that says I did this many hours on these machines, or
yeah, I mean,
I won my simulation.
Like I've had one guy in the 6 years I've owned Hill show up with a portfolio of parts he had, and it was impressive. It was kind of before Titan had done that, or at least before I knew about it, but really impressive. And you get to see, okay, he can make anything we're doing. And if someone showed up with that in addition to job cost data on their parts and a P&L, they might skip the floor and come office with me.
You could have my job.
Right.
I'll also add an anecdote. I was talking to hiring managers for some pretty big companies like SpaceX and Tesla and big manufacturing tech companies. And when we were talking about the students that were graduating out of the same program that I went to, after having built cars and done real world things, compared to, and no disrespect to mechanical engineers, but mechanical engineers that went through a purely theoretical sort of book classroom setting, they said those engineers are basically useless for a couple of years. But the people that came from the hands-on applied learning, they could just start working and be productive on day one. They were just so much more plug and play than someone that had only learned in a book. And so it just really underscored for me how important this real world application is to real world applicability to careers, and being productive right away.
And Paul, I know you're like me and Mike. We're always recording podcasts, so we don't get to listen to a lot of them. But I don't know if you got a chance to hear the one with Stephen Corchain that we did from Lights Out. And he had this whole premise, which was like, and I think he's dead on. But Lights Out, of course, is more focused on automation, running that advanced manufacturing facility. And he's like, when we siloed everything, when like engineers were theoretical and machinists learned how to run a machine and programmers were programmers, like we killed a lot of automation potential, because you need to know like the whole process to know like, okay, where can we apply automation, and where can, like, if you only understand your little tunnel, then like the next tunnel doesn't make any sense. Like, how do you connect the dots, right? And so I was just like, man, that's like really profound. It makes a ton of sense. And my whole family comes from these schools in Austria. My cousin went through it. My grandfather, who started our company, went through it, and they're called like HTLs, higher technical learning. By the time you're like sophomore age, you're like half in a shop, like literally running manuals and designing things and like actually making stuff. or it's some other track. But we take way too long to specialize in this country, in my opinion. You got to go through like what felt like 6 years of college before you can even really start to learn something you're going to actually do. Because it's all I took like some silly classes. Like, why am I even doing this? Because you got to like check all the boxes to get a really nice general education. So you might be able to do like really good on Jeopardy or something. But people want like productive business people. So I think you're spot on. That application, the practical mixed with the theoretical is really what it takes to make a manufacturing leader. Well, guys, Paul's got a homework assignment. We got a chance to shine the spotlight on Chris and Gabe. But what a great episode. And I think, this thing has legs. If we really did build out like more of a, you graduate from learning how to run machines to learning how to run a manufacturing business, and we kind of build out that whole system. Like, I'm just trying to figure out where I can buy it for my 9-year-old daughter and get her started. So.
Chris, Gabe, thank you guys for what you're doing just for that next generation of leaders.
Yeah.
I have a family full of educators, and when people like you are kind of stepping up there and changing the game a little bit, it has a huge impact.
Well, thank you guys for your support and taking interest in us, and thank you.
I got little labels. You guys can't see them on the podcast, but I got little labels under these guys. Gabe Kooyers, hero of the trade. Chris Townsend, the Mark Cuban of manufacturing.
Nice.
I love it.
And with that, we got to do our sign off. Our sign off is always, if you're not making chips,
You're not making money.
Bam.